Hi, I'm Josh Nicolaitis with Nicolaitis Outdoors, and we're going to go over how to do a friction fire using a bow drill set today. First thing I want to talk about is the difference between a tinder bundle and a bird's nest. A tinder bundle and a bird's nest are really similar. It's the same materials really, except for a tinder bundle is more, it doesn't have to be in any particular shape, you just have to have the different layers. And you can take a lighter, like this one in your pocket, or in my pocket, and just light it on fire and then put the layers on until you start building your fire up. A bird's nest is one that you would use if you had a coal to transfer or char cloth from a flint and steel method, whatever you're using. If you have an ember to transfer and then have to blow it into the flame, you're going to want to use a bird's nest. So basically, the rundown, if you want to come a little closer, is you want to build your tinder bundle. I actually have one more layer to add in there. Not much of a layer, but there's a layer. You want to go from your finest material on over to your next finest materials, to a little bit thicker materials, all the way down to a semi-thick material. This is actually vines. They're kind of woody and it's almost like twigs, but it's going to build the flames up. So what you'll do, this is actually bark from the inside of a walnut tree, and I'll show you a little bit more on that here in a little bit. Take this and you build it. This is dried pine needles, and they work great because, for one, they are dry and a little bit coarse material, but they also are full of pine resin. This is actually cattail fluff, which is actually a little finer than this, but it doesn't catch flame real good. It just kind of sparks, but it'll be good for drying out the rest of the layers. So we'll take our jute twine, which jute is just vegetable material that's been made in twine. If you unravel it, it makes great tinder. You can do the same thing with dried grass. If you take leaves and crumble them up real fine, they all work just about the same, but it's what I have available. So that is our bird's nest right there. And what you'll do is you make a little divot in there, and when we get our coal, we're going to transfer it into there, and then I'll show you how to blow it in there. Another good tinder material is an actual bird's nest. I have one here, but birds actually live in there, so I'm leaving it alone. They actually may not be there anymore because it looks kind of vacant now and tore up. But you can use an actual bird's nest, but then you have to worry about bugs and stuff like that. You make your own, you still kind of have to worry about bugs, but it'll be alright. So we have our bird's nest ready. I'm going to set this right here where it's up off the ground and not collecting moisture like my sticks over here are. Second thing you want to do, you want to make sure you have your fire ready to build. You want to be proactive and think ahead. I have caught myself several times with my pants down getting ember. I have a bird's nest and nothing to build my fire with, and then you end up without a fire. So what I like to do is I like to take and process my wood down. And you want sticks that are smaller than pencils, and then you have about pencil size to maybe a little bit bigger. You don't want much bigger. And then I have a pile here that's almost like a Sharpie or a magic marker size, and then you just work your way up in size. So now we'll go over the parts of the actual bow drill set. Obviously you have a bow, and you can see how I've got that's kind of tied off there where it's easily undone and tightened or loosened or whatever. You don't want this to be super tight. It will get tight as you put your spindle in there and twist it. And with this being paracord, it popped. You may not be able to hear it, but I did. That's the sound you want to hear. If you were using bank line, it pops really loud and you can hear it very well. Bank line works real well, especially if you get the tarred stuff, because it has more of a grip on your spindle. But I have found that if I'm having a hard time getting an ember, I will lose that bank line before I will lose this paracord. That bank line will snap and the paracord won't. Paracord will snap, but it takes a long time. So we have our bow. you have your spindle, and this spindle is actually a little bit short because I've been using it quite a bit. You're going to start out probably about this long, and like I say, I've worn it down to about like this. You want it to be as round as you can get it. It doesn't matter if there's some imperfections, that's okay, because that gives the string something to grip onto and it actually helps it turn. But you don't want it to be so squared off that whenever it gets down in your hole that you're going to make in your fireboard, that it won't turn. So there's our spindle. Next part is our socket, and the socket can be made out of several different things. I have made them out of green wood. You don't want to use dried wood because it will start burning in your hand the same time that your fireboard will. Use green wood for the socket, dead dry wood for the fireboard. I made this one out of stone. I actually took a Dremel and made my divot in there for my spindle to sit in like this. And I made it good and smooth where there's no friction on there whenever I'm actually drilling. I have seen people use different things like seashells and nut husks, or not nut husks, nut shells. And I have actually used a skateboard wheel because it has ball bearings in there and it has absolutely no friction. Anything you can get in there to hold it in place and reduce friction there to where all your friction is focused on your fireboard, you're good. The last part is your fireboard or your hearth board. I've heard it called several different things. I just call it fireboard. And basically what we're going to do is what we have done here. And I'm going to do it again to show you. And I'll try to do it as quick as possible. We're going to carve a little divot. Then we will burn it in, and I'll show you what that means here in a minute. And then we will actually carve our notches. And you want to do a V notch that goes into the divot. And then you're going to bevel it on the bottom. And what that beveling does is it allows oxygen to get to the ember. Or get to the dust pile, rather, to make the ember. So real quick, if I can find my knife. What we're going to do, I'm going to come down here. We do safety first. We don't ever cut up here on your leg, because if you go through and you're in a survival situation and you slice your artery, even if you're not in a survival situation, slicing an artery usually means death. So you definitely don't want to do it when you're 20 miles out in the woods. So we'll go down here on the ground, and you don't want to be too close to the edge, because then you get stuff like this where it actually runs off and you do not get an ember out of that. These are mistakes that I've made. You want it to be about like where these are. So we'll go about to the center of where those are. And this doesn't have to be extremely deep, because you're going to make it deeper as you burn it in. Alright, so we got our little divot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this little piece of bark, and we're going to set it on the piece of bark. And what that does is it keeps your fireboard up off the ground. You can do this with leaves or whatever you got handy, but I'm using bark for right now because it's what I have handy. We're going to take our bow, our spindle, and our socket. And the way you want to position yourself, this is exactly how you're going to do when you actually start drilling to make the fire too, is where I made the divot, I'm going to put my foot as close to that as I can, and you could actually take a leaf or something like that and put underneath your foot to keep moisture from transferring from your shoe to your fireboard too, but I already stepped on it, so we're just going to go with it. But you want to get as close to that divot as you can without inhibiting your ability to drill. And then you're going to put your spindle in there, just like this, give it a twist. And I don't know if you can hear that pop or not, but you're going to listen for a pop. You're going to put it down in your notch that you just carved. Put your socket on top of your spindle, and you're going to lock your wrist in place right here up against your shin. And then you're just going to do slow, full strokes. And basically you want to do this until you start seeing a little bit of smoke, which we're already getting. Go a little bit longer so it's good, and I can show you. All right. Now you can see we're already getting black dust, which is good. I'm going to do it on cardboard where you can see it a little easier than you could if I were to do it on this bark. Don't throw that away. People throw that away and it's dumb. That is useful, and you'll see why here in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and use my box cutter because I forgot where I put my other knife. And again, cut away from you. Don't cut towards you. Don't cut up here on your leg. That's a good way to get yourself hurt. Even if you don't hit an artery, if you're out in a survival situation and you get a deep gash, guess what? You're getting an infection. Or at least it increases your chances. Now when you start this V notch, you're probably not going to hit right down to the middle of that hole right away. You got to work your way in, especially if you're using wood that's thick enough. And I'll show you how thick it really needs to be here in a second once I get this done. If your fireboard is too thin, you're going to burn right through it before you ever get your ember. You're basically just drilling a hole at that point. You go one side, then the other, and just kind of kick it out as you go. This is actually working a little faster than it would have if I was using my other knife anyway. If you have a fixed blade, that is actually ideal for this kind of stuff. You don't really want to trust a folding knife for doing this, but this is what I have on me at the time. And we're about to get rain, so I'm not going to go looking for my fixed blade knife. All right, so now our notch goes up into the hole. Now we just need to bevel that bottom. And basically, we're just going to shave off parts of the bottom. Be careful if you're cutting towards you. Always be careful. You really should never cut towards you. I should be taking this and spinning it around, cutting this side, spinning it around and cutting this side. But I know, as well as you know, that a lot of times we cut towards ourselves even when we're not supposed to. All right, so now we should be ready to drill. But real quick, I want to show you. You want it to be about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. If it's too thin, like I said, you'll drill right through it. If it's too thick, you may never get enough dust built up in here to start an ember. So now, again, like I say, I'm going to use cardboard so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. And actually, I don't like doing it this way, but I'm going to attempt to do this with the notch facing you so that you can see how this builds up. Usually I like the notch to be towards me. All right, again, as close to your hole or your notch as you can without impeding your ability to drill. Go nice slow strokes at first, and if you watch down there by our notch, you'll see the dust actually kicking out and starting to fill up our hole. Now, I've got smoke, but you really don't want to start going too fast until you know you've got enough dust built up in your notch, which we've got enough that it should build up as we go. And then you're going to speed up. You see more and more smoke. You basically want to drill until you can't drill anymore. A lot of people give up right before they actually get an ember. All right.
Now, see, it's starting to smoke on its own without me drilling, but I'm leaving that spindle in there for just a second to help let that heat build. Now I'll take it out and very gently take your knife, knock that coal out of there, the ember rather, and now we have an ember. So we'll let that breathe for a second. The wind kind of blew our tinder bundle apart here. You always bring your tinder bundle to your ember, not the other way around. And the reason for that is you go moving that ember and the wind picks up or you trip, that ember's gone. And all the work you just did is gone. Alright, so you can see there's good white color to it. And if you blow on it just gently, it's glowing really well. So that's down into the material. Now you can either scrape this with your knife, or you can do a quick flip of this right onto your tinder bundle, or you can take your tinder bundle, or your bird's nest rather, and put it on top and then flip it back over. I've seen people do it every way. The way I like to do it is just very gently take your knife and make sure you get all the material down in there. And again, we're just going to let it breathe for a second. Let it kind of do its thing. And then start just gently breathing, not blowing, just breathing. You blow on it, a lot of times you're going to blow right through that material, and your coal is going to drop out the other side in several pieces. I keep saying coal, I mean ember. Now I'm going to work my way back over here to my fire pit. When you start seeing more and more smoke building up in your tinder material in your bird's nest, then you can start blowing on it a little bit more aggressively. You always want to try to hold it up. Right there, we got flame. Flip it over. And that'll help everything else catch a little. And what I did there is I actually let go of it a little too soon. I should have held it up and let it burn a little longer. But it all worked out in the end. So now, while we have flame, basically want to go, and there's several different ways to build a fire. This is just one of them. But you are going to have the same components. Small pieces, slightly bigger pieces, till you're up to logs. And you're going to build your fire like that. There are upside down fires where you actually put the big stuff on bottom. But then you build basically, it's a log cabin with a teepee on top. It's not what we're going to do here today. We're just building a fire. But you want to crisscross these. This layer went this way, so this layer is going this way until all your little sticks are gone. Those are your size smaller than pencil. Then your pencil maybe a little bit bigger. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to split them up in two. That layer is going this way, so this layer will go this way. Make sure you're keeping enough space in there to let oxygen through. And we're going to go to our magic marker size. amazed that my dog has been as quiet as he has throughout this video. Okay, that's fire, dummy. And it's gonna try to collapse on me. It's alright. Now I did go ahead and process this wood just for the sake of time of this video. Like I say, we're supposed to be getting some rain today, and I didn't want to have to put this video off till tomorrow. I did process this wood earlier off camera. Yeah, I built it all lopsided. That's alright. It'll still burn. But one thing I do want to show you about this wood is, like I said earlier, survival is being proactive. Whether it be building a fire or shelter, whatever, you want to have your materials ready and available for you to use. So one thing I did keep aside was this stick here. When I was breaking this stick, this bark started coming off, and that makes awesome tinder material when it's dried out. So I set that one aside so I can show you that. This fire is eventually going to go out. It may be 2 or 3 days from now if I forget to feed it in the middle of the night and it just goes out and peters out on me overnight, or you might get a rain shower that puts it out, whatever. So if you're being proactive, you're going to have another tinder bundle ready to go. And what you can do, this is some bark off a walnut tree, and take this inner bark, it's real fine. You can do the same thing with cedar bark. You can pull it right off the living tree, and it'll come off real fine, and actually is finer than this stuff. But I'm going to let this material sit right here next to my fire and dry out. That way I have dry material. Then I'll take that and put it either in my pockets, you know, in inner pockets like these inside this jacket, to where it's going to stay good and dry, and maybe dry out a little bit more from my body heat. Or I'm going to throw it in my pack in an area where I know it's going to stay dry even if it gets rained on. Put it inside the shelter. Whatever you got to do to keep that dry once you get it dry. Go ahead and throw that on there. And basically you're going to do just like you did with your tinder bundle. You're going to build it from the smallest material to the biggest material. Now we're getting into some of the bigger logs. Now some of this stuff, here's more of that bark. No point in wasting that. That's something that's just going to burn up in a few seconds on the fire. We'll pull it off. And this stuff's really wet as opposed to this stuff's fairly dry. So this stuff might have to sit there a little bit longer. And the more we shred it up ahead of time, the more surface area is exposed and the faster it's going to dry out. But we're having that possum mentality. You're going to be a pack rat. Keep things that are going to be useful to you later on. Now you're going to want to mix in dry wood with wet wood, which is what I've done here, and it's kind of hard to see on film. And here again, more of that wet bark. We can peel that right off, set it right here next to this fire, and within an hour or two, it'll be good and dry. All right. So now basically, rubbing two sticks together, how my dad used to say it, we've created a sustainable fire. And I can walk away from this confidently knowing that if I come back in 10 minutes, it's still going to be burning. Like I was saying, you want to use the wet and dry, a mixture of both, because the dry stuff is going to burn good and hot, and it's going to dry out that wet stuff, and that wet stuff in turn is going to burn longer. If all you have is dry wood, you do not want to leave that fire for very long because it will burn out on you. So, a couple of quick things I want to go over. This is going to lose its shape if you're not careful, and especially if you're using a wooden socket. All you got to do is carve it back down to shape. Same thing with this. You can see it's kind of flattened off, and it still worked. But what you're going to do is just take and get rid of any of the polished spots. This one's not really all that shiny, just the type of wood that I used. It doesn't really get all that polished and shiny, but you're going to get rid of that. And what that does is it roughens it back up and makes it to where you still get friction when you're actually drilling. Again, if you use wood for a socket, use green wood, not dry wood, or you will burn through it and it'll actually burn your hand. Your bow needs to be approximately the length of your arm and be already at a natural curve. It's not like a bow that you're going to shoot where you actually put the bend in it yourself. It needs to have a natural bow. One more thing. Your fireboard and your spindle. The best advice I can give you is process them out of the exact same piece of wood. That's what I did with this. And like I said, this spindle was about as long as this hearthboard is. I took my hatchet and I split it, and then I shaped this, and then I kind of evened this out and made it a little bit flatter. But by doing that, you know that it's the same wood and you're going to have better results getting an ember. If you have one that's harder than the other, or vice versa, sometimes that gives you some trouble. The best way to do it is to have it out of the same piece of wood. So that is fire by friction using a bow drill. Soon I'll do a video on a hand drill, and then we'll do some other fire methods such as a parabolic lens, magnifying lens, a mag bar, a ferrocerium rod, and possibly a flint and steel. We'll have to see about that. But again, don't waste your dust. I just about wasted it.